Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is a really fascinating one. We're trying to figure out the catastrophic economics behind a truly beloved animated film. We are plunging into DreamWorks Animation's 2012 feature, Rise of the Guardians. And when you look at the raw data for this movie, it's just a total Hollywood head-scratcher.
It really is.
You have this film that was visually spectacular based on these classic childhood figures, and it was universally adored by the audiences who actually went to see it.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking a rare, really coveted A cinema score.
Yeah.
Yet this movie ended up being a massive financial failure. It forced the studio to take, an estimated $87 million write-down.
It's the textbook case of the paradoxical blockbuster.
Yeah.
You know, on the surface, it's this beautifully animated fantasy film directed by Peter Ramsey, rooted in William Joyce's mythology.
Right.
But for DreamWorks, this film's story is less about Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and far more about the devastating consequences of a failed box office strategy and just excessive spending.
So how does a great audience score lead to immediate layoffs? That's what we have to figure out.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this, maybe starting with the core concept. It's really ambitious. One reviewer I saw nailed it perfectly, calling it the Avengers for children.
That's a great way to put it. The pitch was definitely high-concept mythology.
So what was the roster? Who are they uniting here?
Well, it brings together the four sort of foundational guardians of childhood. You have Nicholas St. North.
Santa Claus.
Santa, yes, yeah. Then the Easter Bunny, Aster Bunnymund, the Tooth Fairy, Toothiana, and the Sandman. And they're this kind of heroic collective.
And the threat.
Their ultimate enemy is Pitch Black, the boogeyman, who wants to destroy children's belief in them completely. You know, plunge the world into fear and darkness.
And what made this film stand out right away wasn't just bringing them together. It was the radical redesign of these characters. These are not your grandmother's holiday figures.
Not at all. DreamWorks took some really big artistic swings, and I think that's what resonated with audiences and even the critics who praised the visuals.
Nicholas St. North is the perfect example.
Absolutely. The Guardian of Wonder. They gave him this massive, almost Russian Dead Moroz persona. He has tattoos, these huge swords, a thick accent.
And his workshop isn't run by elves.
No, it's this huge ice castle built and run by Yetis who are completely loyal to him. It's an immediate, shift in tone from the tradition.
It signals right away that this isn't just a sweet little Christmas story. This is an action-adventure film. And my favorite example of that reinterpretation has to be Bunnymund, the Easter Bunny.
The Guardian of Hope. Reimagined as a 6-foot-tall, sarcastic Australian warrior.
Wielding boomerang.
Huge boomerangs, yeah. And he operates out of this incredibly vast underground warren. You know, the reviews we saw frequently pointed out that these non-traditional versions were just a source of tremendous fun. They made these old figures feel relevant.
Can we talk about the other two? Because their roles are maybe the most specialized, especially the Tooth Fairy.
Toothiana, or Tooth, the Guardian of Memories, she's visually just arresting. They designed her as part human, part hummingbird.
Inspired by the canary from mythology, right?
Loosely, yeah. And she isn't just trading coins for teeth. She's collecting them because they literally hold children's most precious memories. So if Pitch steals the teeth, he's stealing the history of their joy. It leaves them vulnerable.
And then there's Sandy, the Sandman. It's kind of the elder statesman of the group.
He is. He's the oldest guardian, the guardian of dreams. He was the first one chosen by the Man in the Moon. His communication is entirely nonverbal.
Right, he uses sand images.
He conjures these beautiful, expressive images above his head with his dream sand. He's absolutely essential, and his visual simplicity is just a beautiful contrast to the hyper-detailed world around him.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting, because the movie isn't really about the established team.
No.
It's about the reluctant hero, Jack Frost. This kind of cocky, upstart, teenage hellion who wants nothing to do with the Guardians at first.
Jack is the necessary anchor for the audience. He's on a classic hero's journey, one that's really defined by isolation.
So he emerges from a frozen pond with amnesia 300 years earlier.
Right, with this potent cryokinesis, his magic staff.
Yeah.
But he's completely invisible to the mortal world. He's just wandering around with no purpose, no memory of who he is.
So his motivation to join them is, well, it's pretty selfish at first. He only really gets invested when he realizes the teeth that Pitch is stealing hold his own lost memories.
Exactly. That makes the conflict incredibly personal for him. His whole arc is defined by that search for identity.
And the climax of that search is powerful.
It really is. The emotional peak is when he finally touches those preserved memories and learns the truth. that he was a human boy.
A boy who sacrificed himself to save his younger sister Mary before being transformed into the spirit of winter. It's a fantastic origin story.
It is. And once he reconciles his past with his present, he finally accepts his role. He realizes his center is fun. He becomes the guardian of fun.
That realization, that fun is a fundamental part of belief and protection. That's the core theme. The film is full of these messages. Finding your identity, belonging, faith.
It is, though we should probably acknowledge the source critique here. Some felt the narrative get a bit heavy-handed.
Yeah, one reviewer noted that the moralistic messages sometimes felt a little too preachy, which, is a common challenge in films for younger audiences, balancing the spectacle with the sermon.
And that might be why the villain, Pitch Black, works so well. Jude Law's voice performance is just dripping with this gravitas.
And Nightmare King.
The literal embodiment of fear. But what's so fascinating is his final defeat. Once the children's belief is restored, the sources note that Pitch actually becomes terrified of his own nightmares.
Because he's forgotten.
He's forgotten. It's this brilliant cyclical piece of writing. The fearmonger becomes irrelevant and escaped himself when the world chooses happiness.
Let's switch gears a bit and talk about the creation of all this, because the production itself was steeped in some personal drama, but also some major artistic talent.
The story starts with a really charming moment. The whole concept came from the author William Joyce's daughter, Mary Catherine.
She asked if Santa had ever met the Easter Bunny.
Exactly. But tragically, Mary Catherine died during the film's production back in 2010. The entire movie is dedicated to her memory.
And the production itself was making history, even before it hit the screens.
Absolutely. When Joyce stepped back, Peter Ramsey made his feature debut as the solo director. And that fact alone made him the first African-American to direct a big-budget, feature-length CG animated film.
And they had a major creative visionary shaping the look and feel.
They did. Guillermo del Toro.
The master of dark fantasy, he was an executive producer. How tangible was his influence?
Oh, it was crucial. Del Toro was involved in the story structure, the character designs, the themes. He specifically wanted to ensure parts of the film were, and this is a quote, dark and moody and poetic.
You can see that with Pitch Black's nightmares and Jack Frost's isolation.
For sure. He was aiming for something visually richer, tonally deeper than your typical kids' movie.
And that depth is really reflected in the lighting and cinematography. They brought in a serious consultant for that.
They leveraged serious live-action talent. Cinematographer Roger Deakins, who's known for films like No Country for Old Men.
And he'd worked on How to Train Your Dragon before this.
Right. He consulted on the visuals, helped establish the color keys, the contrast, the lighting, all to give the CG environments this incredibly realistic, almost photorealistic look. That's part of why the spectacle works so well.
Speaking of spectacle, the effects for Sandy's Dream Sand and Pitch's Nightmare Sand, that required some serious new tech, right? Which DreamWorks actually gave back to the industry.
They did. This really highlights the studio's massive investment. During production, they developed and then released OpenVDB as open source software.
What exactly is that?
It was a state-of-the-art tool for manipulating complex volume data. Think smoke, clouds, amorphous materials, all the stuff that was essential for rendering those incredibly detailed fluid effects for Sandy and Pitch. It was a huge technical achievement.
And the auditory landscape is unique, too. They broke a major studio tradition with the score.
Yeah, they went with the French composer Alexandre Desplat. This was a big shift. It was the first time a DreamWorks animation film didn't involve Hans Zimmer or someone from his remote control productions group.
And Desplat brought a totally different feel.
He brought this beautiful, orchestral, almost European flair to the sound, which just matched the film's epic mythological scope perfectly.
So we have world-class talent, real innovation, a $145 million budget, a great premise, and a beautifully finished product. And now we get to the financial disaster.
This is where we have to look past those surface numbers. The film grossed $306.9 million worldwide.
Which, in a vacuum, sounds okay against a $145 million budget, but it's not that simple.
It's a failure for two main reasons: brutal competition and just astronomical marketing costs.
Let's break down the marketing, because that's really the silent killer in this story.
It is. That $145 million, that's just for production. For a major animated film with a global release in 2012, industry estimates suggest the P&A, the prints, and advertising costs were easily in the neighborhood of $100 million, maybe more.
So the total cost for DreamWorks was closer to $250 million.
At least.
Yeah.
And the studios, they don't see 100% of the gross. The theaters take their cut.
Which is about half domestically.
Right. So a film generally needs to gross about 2.5 times its total cost to break even. If the total cost was $250 million, they needed a worldwide gross of, well, at least $400 million, maybe closer to 450. And $306 million just wasn't even close.
Which directly explains that staggering $87 million write-down. That's the studio admitting the loss. But why? Why did a film this good fail to hit even $350 million?
It was a disastrous release date decision.
Hmm.
It opened the Wednesday before Thanksgiving 2012, which should be prime real estate for a family film. But the distributor just completely misjudged the available space.
What were they up against?
They opened on the exact same weekend as the Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn Part 2.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's an audience vacuum right there.
A total cultural phenomenon. And on top of that, the massive James Bond hit, Skyfall, had just dominated the previous 2 weeks and was still pulling in huge numbers.
So the family audience was cannibalized by the final Twilight movie, and the general cultural buzz was saturated by giants like Bond.
Precisely. The film needed to be a massive, sustained hit, and it just wasn't. The opening was disappointing, and it never found its momentum. It was a strategic failure that cost the studio dearly.
And it had real human costs.
It did. The severity of the loss led to DreamWorks laying off 350 employees in February 2013. It crippled development on other projects, including a really anticipated film called Me and My Shadow.
That's staggering.
Yeah.
This is where the audience data makes this story so fascinating. You have critical and box office disappointment, but an A cinema score from audiences. Why that disconnect?
That split is crucial for understanding modern cinema. The critics. They're 75% on Rotten Tomatoes and 58% on Metacritic. That suggests mixed reviews. They praised the visuals, the pacing, but some felt the storytelling was, quote, so-so.
Probably referring to those preachy elements we mentioned.
Possibly that, or the reliance on a familiar hero's journey. But the audience, the people actually polled walking out of the theater, they loved it. That A score is a marker of genuine connection.
They grade the experience, not the structure.
Exactly. They connected with the spectacular visuals, the cool reinterpretations of the characters, Jack Frost's emotional journey, all of it. They left the theater feeling completely satisfied. The film worked for them. There just weren't enough of them on opening weekend.
But there was a final twist, right? Regarding its success after the theatrical run, a measure of vindication.
There is. The audience love that failed to show up in box office dollars became very tangible later on. Despite the crushing failure in theaters, the film performed exceptionally well in the home media market.
It had the highest box office to DVD conversion ratio among major releases for that time. That's a staggering stat.
It is. People didn't rush to the theater to see it, but they rushed to buy it later. By October 2014, it had sold 5.8 million home entertainment units worldwide. It proved the product itself had real value. The audience found the film, the studio just failed to position it correctly.
So Rise of the Guardians is a prime, painful example of a film where technical mastery, artistic vision, and genuine audience appreciation just completely failed to align with box office success, mostly due to a poor release strategy and huge spending.
And that enduring success on home media leads us to the final provocative question this whole story poses. Although the film caused this massive financial fallout for DreamWorks, the excellent cinema score and those strong, sustained home media sales, they suggest a lasting connection with the audience. And it makes you wonder, in our modern digital age, does audience love measured in belief, repeat viewing, and long tail sales? Does that ultimately define the true success of modern mythology, even if that love couldn't save the opening weekend?
It certainly seems like the Guardians found their believers eventually.